Hello and welcome to this much shorter than usual video. YouTube really didn't like the 4-month gap I had between the last video and the one before, so I need to make some much quicker content, but I will still do the much bigger projects as well. Now, if you watched the last video, I mentioned at the end I had a plan, and that was to infiltrate a painting exhibition. I do a lot of fine art, pretty picture painting, and I belong to various art societies, and I had an exhibition coming up where I need to submit 5 paintings. So I decided one of them was going to be a diorama, a fairly low relief diorama that fits inside a box frame. So here's the making of it, and let's see if it gets accepted for the exhibition. The first task is to cut some foam to fit into the box frame, which is all simple enough, but the 20mm foam I have, and that's all I've got at the moment, is far too thick, and at 20 centimeters square it's too long to fit in my hot wire cutter, so I had to cut the sheet in half and do it in 2 goes. Also, what I could really do with is one of those tall 90-degree angle guides for the hot wire cutter, as I found it impossible to not wobble a bit as it went through. Fortunately, the front wall I'm making here is hundreds of years old, and a bit of wobble is absolutely fine. But if I need to do this accurately, I really am going to need to buy one of those tall guides or make my own. Here I've got the window and door that I quickly modelled up and resin 3D printed. I made the window a bit too thin, so it's very delicate and a few edges snapped off, but that added to the age look, so I didn't mind. It's all too easy to 3D model things that are far too tiny. You end up putting detail that will never be seen due to the ability to zoom right in while you're working in 3D. So with these 2 objects, I'm putting them in place, and when I'm happy with their exact position, I just mark around so I know where I'm going to carve the stone areas and cut the holes for the window and door. The cutting out of the window and doors is quite a straightforward affair. You just have to make sure your blade is really sharp. For me, that means snapping off another section of the blade to reveal a brand new part. But I have seen in the cosplay world, when they're cutting EVA foam, which blunts Stanley knives very quickly, they can resharpen the blade with a diamond file. They're quite expensive and I haven't got myself one yet, but it's on the list. The area above the door I want recessed, so I'm cutting it out completely, then slicing it in half, gluing it back in, job done. All that's left to do with this foam now is to scribe in the brickwork, and I'm finding the very convenient tool for doing this job is my propelling pencil with a 6H lead in there. I can use it lightly to actually just draw a pencil line, or put a bit of pressure on and the sharp point cuts right into the foam. I'm not going with any great plan for the brickwork as it's just random blocks, but the thing you've got to be careful of is not to make one of the lines overlap the others. That just wouldn't happen with a load of random blocks. So if you're drawing a block next to a larger one, as you're drawing around it, don't push into the larger block where they meet. It'll look unnatural. They all must be very separate. All I've got to do now is a quick bashing over all the stones with a real stone to give it some texture, and then glue in the window and door using foam safe superglue. What I need to do now is the timber frame part of the building. As was quite common in the past, long past, the bottom would be built of brick, and on top of that a timber frame with probably wattle and daub filling in the gaps. Not sure what the gaps were in this building that I'm basing on, but it's time to bring out the trusty old coffee stirrers, snip them to size and glue them on, plus give them a rub over with very coarse sandpaper to simulate some wood texture. Even though they're made of wood anyway, it needs a deeper texture. Then cover everything in PVA glue to seal it, ready for painting. I'm mixing the PVA with 50% water to get it flowing nicely and giving the whole thing 3 coats, leaving each one to dry in between. I've decided to use some florist wire that I already had to make some simple cross wires, probably not the term, in the windows just to add a bit more detail. I'm not going to bother to put any actual plastic glass in there at all, as the whole diorama will be under glass anyway and I don't think it'll notice. Now the fun part, the painting, where everything comes together and all the details you can barely see start to come alive. First I'm going to do the brick, and the technique here, as I've done quite a few times before now, is to paint the individual bricks with quite vivid garish colours. You have to be bold here, as a later stage will completely knock this all back, so if you're not bold and vivid here, the effect will be lost. After the paint's thoroughly dried, I'm now carefully sprinkling tile grout all over the brickwork and working it into the mortar lines, and then try and remove most of the excess that is still on the face of the bricks, but you won't get rid of at least a thin covering of the tile grout all over the bricks, so that's why we painted them really vivid, to show through this thin layer of tile grout. When I think I've got a good covering, I then use a roughly 30 to 70% PVA water mix in a dropper bottle, the PVA being the 30%, and thoroughly soak the whole area and let it dry overnight. And this simple little procedure really transforms the brick. In the home straight now, all I've got to do is paint some base colours in the other areas, so a cream colour for the stonework and grey for the woodwork, using some darker colour on the brush and mottling some of the stone areas, and the usual dry brushing of the wood areas with a much lighter grey, and in some areas pure white, wiping off any excess you may have. Once that's dried, I then go over the whole diorama with a very dilute black wash, letting it drip, as this will simulate years of dirt and grime, and putting that where I think most of it will sit, like underneath the window frame and wooden beams. You can be quite bold here, as it does dry lighter, and if you put too much on, you can always go back to the original colour and erase some of it. So no need to be precious, just slap it all over. As I'm coming to the end of this, I must say I've quite enjoyed doing this little diorama in a frame. I was under extreme time pressure, so it had to be very simple, but I definitely want to do some more, but more complex, and to make a deeper frame. And here's the final diorama placed into its frame, and tomorrow it's off to the exhibition. Fingers crossed it gets past the selectors. Well, my creepy woods got in, my orangutans got in, my golden monkeys got in, and my stream running through a wood got in. Kapla! I managed to get it in the exhibition. Next time I'm going to be bolder and make it deeper and find out where their limits are. I really hope you enjoyed this much quicker little video. My only hope for the channel is to do these quicker ones alongside the more involved projects. There's a lot of time when you're waiting for things to happen, to dry, materials to come through the post, and I take those opportunities to build these smaller quicker ones so I can get more content out to you. Thank you, and I hope to see you on the next video.